I never thought I'd be the guy posting some crazy story about how my wife, Emily, lied to me about everything. About us, about her job, even about her own life. We'd been together for 5 years, engaged for nearly a year, and I genuinely thought we had something solid. She was the girl I wanted to spend forever with, or so I thought. Everything seemed fine until a few weeks ago, when suddenly little things started to change. She became distant, secretive about her phone, and I caught her in little lies, like claiming she was working late when I knew she'd gone out with her friends, or saying she was at the gym but her gym bag was never there. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just stressed or busy with her new job at this advertising agency. She'd been talking about a big project she was proud of. But then, her attitude started to shift. She became bitchy, snapping at me over nothing, deliberately avoiding being alone with me. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day, and she'd suddenly be too tired to have sex. That was weird because she was always pretty eager. Before, still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I trusted her. I mean, she told me she loved me and I believed in us. But something was off and I could feel that gnawing suspicion growing. One night I decided to do a little digging. I figured maybe I was just overthinking things, so I checked her phone while she was out with her friends. Nothing obvious at first, just her usual texts, some work emails, a few selfies on Instagram. But then I noticed a couple of messages from some guy named Ryan, a name I'd never heard before. No big deal, right? But the way she'd been acting, the secretiveness, it made me curious. So I kept scrolling, trying to see what was there. And that's when I found it. The messages weren't just friendly chat. They were flirty, suggestive even. There were pictures of her in lingerie talking about how we shouldn't keep this just online and plans to meet up. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my future wife, was cheating on me with her boss. Ryan was her supervisor, some guy she'd been working with for months, and apparently they'd been sneaking around for weeks. I was stunned. How did I not see it? How did she manage to lie about everything? I'd never even suspected a thing until I found those texts. I kept staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. It was such a betrayal, a blow to my chest like I'd been punched. She was out of town that weekend, supposedly at a conference, but she'd been with him. I could feel the rage boiling up inside me, mixed with heartbreak. Everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. I felt sick. The next morning, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying what I'd seen and trying to figure out what to do. I knew I couldn't keep this secret, not after discovering the truth. I needed to confront her, but I also wanted to be careful. I didn't want to blow up everything without a plan. So I waited until she came home that evening, pretending everything was normal. She strutted in the door, all confident and bitchy as usual, throwing her purse on the counter and giving me that little smirk that I now saw as so fake. I took a deep breath. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking a little, "we need to talk." Her smile faded a bit and she looked at me with that "oh, what now" attitude. "What's going on?" she asked, acting innocent, but I already knew. I pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. "Who's Ryan?" I asked directly. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she scoffed. "What are you talking about, my boss? That's ridiculous." She crossed her arms, but her voice was a little shaky. "I wasn't buying it. I saw your messages," I said. "You've been sneaking around with him. You've been lying to me about everything." She rolled her eyes and scoffed again. "Oh, please, you're overreacting. It's just work. You know how these things go. It's nothing serious." That's when I saw her get defensive, the way she always did when she was trying to hide something. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I knew she'd been cheating, that I found hotel room keys hidden in her jewelry box, something I'd never expected to find. Her face went pale for a second, then she threw her head back and laughed in that bitchy, dismissive way she always did. "You're crazy," she spat. "You think I'd cheat on you? With my boss? You're delusional." I could feel my blood boiling. How could she be so cold, so dismissive? I'd never seen her like this before. It was like she didn't care that she'd just lied to my face, that she'd betrayed everything we'd built. I told her I wanted the truth, no more lies. She looked at me with that venomous smirk, then suddenly started to shift her tone, acting hurt, acting like I was the one who was crazy, the one who didn't understand how work worked. She kept insisting that I was jealous, that I was paranoid, and that I was ruining everything with my accusations. It was exhausting, hearing her spin her stories, pretending she was the victim. I looked at her with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. The girl I'd trusted, the girl I'd planned my life with, was out there sleeping with her boss, hiding it from me, lying through her teeth. How did I get here? How did it come to this? I'd been so sure I knew her, so sure we had a future. But now I wasn't sure if I'd ever trust her again. My hands trembled as I just stood there trying to process what I'd uncovered and what I was about to do next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying her lies, her dismissive attitude, and that sick feeling in my gut telling me I'd been naive. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it sooner, how I missed all the signs. The way she snapped at me over petty things, the secret phone calls, the sudden change in her behavior, all of it now made perfect sense. She'd been hiding something huge, and I felt like an idiot for not catching on earlier. The next day, I knew I had to figure out my next move. I decided to dig deeper. I wanted proof, something concrete that I could confront her with. So I broke into her email account, knowing I shouldn't have but feeling desperate. When I logged in, there was more. A string of emails and photos exchanged with Ryan, confirming that their affair had been going on for weeks. They'd even planned to meet again that weekend. The hotel keys I found weren't just random. They were from a hotel she'd booked under a false name. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling a mixture of fury and heartbreak. My wife, the girl I'd loved and trusted, had been lying to me for months. Not just lying, but actively cheating behind my back. And for what? Some stupid affair with her boss. I felt betrayed in a way I'd never experienced before. It was like my entire world was collapsing around me. I couldn't believe she'd do this days before our wedding, that she'd planned to leave me for someone else. The anger bubbled up so badly I wanted to scream. But I knew I had to stay calm, at least for now. I started planning my revenge. I knew I couldn't just confront her again and expect her to come clean. She'd deny everything, twist everything around. I needed to make her realize I knew everything, that she couldn't lie her way out. I thought about revealing everything at the worst moment, maybe during a fight or even in public. But I didn't want to just hurt her. I wanted her to feel the same pain I did, maybe even more. That's when I decided to turn her betrayal into her downfall. She'd taken my trust, my future, and she'd mocked me in the process. I had to make sure she paid for that. I started gathering more evidence, planning subtle moves. I reached out to Ryan, pretending I was interested in working things out, but secretly I wanted to see how far they'd gone. I also started looking into her phone records, her social media, anything that could give me leverage. Every new piece of data made my resolve stronger. I wasn't just going to walk away. She thought she was so clever, lying and cheating behind my back. Well, she'd see what real betrayal looked like. I was now set on revenge, and I knew I'd make her regret ever messing with me. The plan started to take shape in my mind, and I won't lie, it felt almost satisfying just to think about it. After poring over her emails and messages, I realized that her affair with Ryan was more than just a fling. It was an obsession on her part, and she had no intention of stopping. She had lied about everything, about her job, about her feelings, about us. I decided I needed to hit her where it hurt the most, but I also needed to be smart about it. I didn't want her to see it coming or have a chance to spin it into something she could deny. First, I set up a fake email account, just enough to keep tabs on her without her knowing. I started sending her subtle messages, pretending to be someone interested in her so I could gauge her reactions. I also made sure to keep her under surveillance, checking her social media, her whereabouts, her schedule. I was careful, hiding my tracks so she wouldn't figure out I was onto her. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making her understand that I knew everything and that she couldn't hide from me anymore. One evening, I arranged to meet Ryan in a public place, pretending I wanted to talk about work. I kept the conversation vague at first, but then I dropped hints I'd uncovered their secret. Ryan looked nervous, trying to deny everything, but I saw the guilt in his eyes. I also recorded the entire conversation on my phone, just in case I needed it later. I wanted her to know that I had all their secrets, that I'd been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to expose her. It was cold, maybe even ruthless, but I didn't see any other way to get her to understand what she'd done. Meanwhile, I also started to plan how I would confront her again, this time with everything laid bare. I wanted her to feel what I felt: betrayed, humiliated, crushed. I knew she was manipulative, that she'd try to twist everything around, but I had the evidence, and I was ready to use it. I started gathering her things, planning to take them when she was out, just to make her realize that her lies had consequences. This wasn't just about ending a relationship. It was about making sure she knew I wasn't going to be played for a fool. That night, I sat on my couch, listening to the recordings, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and dread. I was finally taking control, but I also knew that once I exposed her, there'd be no going back. Still, I could keep pretending she was innocent, especially after everything I'd uncovered. I was about to make her face the truth: her lies, her betrayal, her cheating, everything. And as much as it hurt, I knew this was the only way to get closure, or so I told myself. The next few days would be the real test of how far I was willing to go. The moment of truth finally arrived. I couldn't wait any longer. I had everything I needed: her messages, her hotel keys, the recordings of Ryan. I knew I had to do it face to face, to make her see that I wasn't just some naive husband-to-be anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. So I set the trap carefully. I waited until she was out at her usual brunch with her friends. Then I grabbed her phone, her jewelry box, where I'd hidden the hotel keys, and a folder with all her emails and recordings. I was about to turn her world upside down. When she came home that afternoon, she was her usual bitchy self, throwing her coat on the sofa, sarcastic comments on my presence. I didn't say a word at first. I just followed her into the living room, setting everything down where she could see. Her eyes darted to the folder, then to her jewelry box. Her face started to drain of color and her smirk faltered. I looked straight into her eyes and said, "We need to talk. I know everything." Her voice cracked a little, trying to pretend she was innocent. "What are you talking about? You're overreacting." But I cut her off. "Don't lie. I saw your messages, your hotel keys, your planning with Ryan. I even recorded your conversation with him. You think you're so clever hiding all this, but I know the truth now." Her jaw tightened and she tried to dismiss everything like it was nothing, but the cracks were showing. She looked furious, then suddenly started to cry. Not genuine tears, more like a way to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself. I was sick of her lies. I told her how deeply she'd hurt me, how I'd trusted her with everything, only for her to betray me at the last moment before our wedding. I told her I'd never been so humiliated in my life to find out she'd been sleeping with her boss, lying about everything. She kept insisting it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that I was overthinking. But I knew better. I played the recordings of her talking with Ryan, and I laid out all the evidence, watching her face twist with guilt, anger, and helplessness. That's when she finally snapped, yelling that I was crazy, that I'd betrayed her just as much by invading her privacy. She accused me of stalking and being paranoid. But I was done listening. I told her I'd had enough, that I was done pretending she was innocent. I told her I was leaving, and I wanted her to know that her lies had destroyed everything. I packed my bags that night, knowing I couldn't stay with someone who'd cheat on me, lie to my face, and dismiss my feelings like they didn't matter. Walking out that door, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I'd lost her, sure, but I also gained my dignity back. I learned a brutal lesson about trust, about how people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face and a false smile, and I realized I'd been fooling myself to think she was different. The betrayal hit hard, but it also set me free. I won't lie, every day since has been a struggle, but I'm slowly healing and I know I'll come out stronger. If I could give one piece of advice, it's this: never ignore the signs and never let anyone treat you like you're less than you deserve. It's been a few weeks since I left her. Honestly, it still hurts, but I feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. The worst part was the feeling of betrayal, like everything I believed in was just a lie. But in a strange way, going through this mess taught me something important. I can survive even the deepest wounds. I learned to trust my instincts again, and I refused to let someone else's betrayal define me. Looking back, I realize how blind I was to her manipulations. She always played the victim or the innocent betrayed girl, but deep down, she was just good at hiding who she really was. Her bitchy attitude, the lies, the sneaking around, none of that was just about her being stressed or busy. It was her way of covering up her own selfishness and immaturity. I won't make that mistake again. I know now that I deserve better, someone who respects me, who values honesty, and who doesn't cheat or lie just because they're too cowardly to face their own flaws. For anyone else out there going through something similar, I'll say this: trust yourself. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Don't make excuses. Keep digging until you find the truth. Because once it's out, you can't unsee it. And even if it's brutal and painful, it's better than living in a lie. You've got to be strong enough to walk away from people who don't deserve you. I don't regret what I did. Exposing her was the only way I could regain my dignity. Now I'm focusing on myself. I've started going out more, reconnecting with friends, and rebuilding my confidence. It's not easy, but I know I'll be okay. My trust will come back someday, but for now, I need to focus on healing and moving forward. I guess what I want everyone to take from this is that even when your world feels shattered, you can pick up the pieces and build something better. You just have to be willing to face the truth, no matter how ugly it is. And someday, you'll look back and realize that losing someone like her was the best thing that ever happened to you.